Hi, friends, welcome to another episode of The Everyday Grind, where we have short conversations on solving common challenges that we face every day, share our experiences, learn from each other, and stay aware of events going on around us. I'm your host, William Obiana. And at the end of the episode, if you would like to share your thoughts on the topic, please feel free to drop a chat on Twitter and Instagram at William Obiana. So let's get right into it. For decades, the US and Western Europe have been the dominant players in the global economy. But in recent years, we've seen the rise of emerging economies, especially the BRICS countries. So on this episode, we will be discussing the increasing economic power of these BRICS countries and what this means for the future of global economy. Now recently, the Silk Road Briefing reported that the combined GDP of these BRIC countries has surpassed that of the G7 countries for the first time in history. The BRIC countries now have a combined GDP since 2020 of about $22.5 trillion, while that of the G7 countries has a combined GDP of about $20.3 trillion. So the BRICS countries have about $2 trillion more than the G7 countries. And this is significant because it has shown that there's a shift in the global economic landscape. Now, because it shows that there is increasing economic power of these BRIC countries, and it's also showing the decline of these advanced countries, the G7 countries. And with the way things are going, this trend is going to continue in the future. What are these BRICS countries and what are these G7 countries? Now, BRICS, B-R-I-C-S, is just an acronym for Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. And these are a group of the 5 largest fast-growing economies globally. And they've been doing very well over the past 10 years, with their economies growing faster than the other countries around them. Now, China, being the most successful, has the biggest economy and they are growing a lot every year. And most recently, a couple of countries have been offering to join these BRICS countries, countries like Egypt, Bangladesh, and most recently the United Arab Emirates. They are all in discussions to join the group. On the other hand, the G7 countries consist of the global power that have dominated the world for decades. So the US, the UK, Germany, France, Italy, Canada, and Japan. And although these G7 countries have been the global power for a while, the current BRICS countries account for about 31.5% of the global GDP, and there are about 40% of them which comprise of the world population. That is about 3.2 billion people who are from these BRICS countries. Now, China has been a major driving force behind the rise of the BRICS countries, and their economic power has been increasing for several reasons. First of all, China is the largest economy in the world after the United States, and because of how big its economy is, it has helped drive growth of these other BRICS countries as well. Secondly, China has invested heavily in infrastructure projects in all the BRICS countries that they are partners with, as well as a lot of African countries. They build things such as railways, ports, highways, the basic infrastructure that every country needs, and this has helped facilitate trade and business growth, and most importantly, it makes these countries loyal to China. Thirdly, China has a very large population and a growing middle class, which has created a significant consumer market for their businesses, and it has also helped them drive economic growth in their region. And finally, China has been the center for manufacturing for a long time now, and many Western countries are dependent on them, and this has actually made China to take advantage of globalization by tapping into global markets and supply chains. Now, by doing this, it has helped them to fuel their economic growth and increase their economic power. As the BRICS countries are increasing their strength and their economic power, unfortunately, the Western G7 countries are slowly on the decline, and this is for some reasons. One of them is that they play power politics a lot with developing nations. Rather than have a genuine desire to assist them and help them grow, most times they just come in there, exploit them, and leave these developing nations in a state of chaos and destructions. And on top of this, they have a history of colonization, and their former colonies do not feel included in global affairs, especially when the narratives that the G7 countries may have is not shared by these developing nations. if the developing nations would voice a different opinion from these G7 countries, they automatically get excluded or disregarded. And on the other hand, the BRICS countries are doing the opposite of what these G7 countries are doing, because they're helping these developing nations to be more included. They make them feel heard, they help them build out their infrastructure, and these BRICS countries, specifically China, is helping these developing nations to grow their influence. Now, obviously, as a developing nation, there's a lot of benefits to this, because now it has sparked some interest to join the BRICS countries, because they feel included, they feel like they have something to offer. And this is actually a good deal for them, because by them joining the BRICS countries, they inevitably would also grow their GDP as a result. The shift towards emerging economies is changing the way the global economy is being structured and governed, and this poses a threat to the G7 countries. They are willing to do whatever it takes to maintain their global authority. However, emerging countries play a bigger role in shaping the future of the world in areas such as trade and investment, and hopefully they can keep working together for a more sustainable global economic system. So this brings us to the end of the episode. Hope you got some value from this. Please don't forget to rate us on Spotify, or if you're watching this on YouTube, like and subscribe, and also share with a friend who you think might also get some value from this. So until the next discussion, take care and bye bye.